All right, back now here at the KFOR Plus News Desk, and we are entering the dog days of divorce. Now, separations have always been ugly when it comes to who gets the house and the kids, but couples now can also be barking mad over who keeps the dog. Joining me now to discuss on whether we need a puppy prenup is Michelle O'Neill, a family law attorney and host of the Divorced to Dynamite podcast. Well, welcome, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, or should I say woof?
Woof, yeah. Well, let's talk about this, Michelle, because I'm a dog owner, love my dogs. How common
am
are
I.
how common are disputes over pet custody, and what is driving this trend these days?
Yeah, I think they're becoming more common as our society starts treating pets more as part of the family. When I was raised as a child, pets were something that kind of stayed outside,
Hmm.
and now even my own pets sleep in bed with me. And I think a lot of people maybe are substituting or including pets as kind of like their kiddos. So they're becoming more part of the family and part of the divorce conversation and even part of the premarital conversation.
You're so right on that, Michelle, because I have a neighbor that lives across the way, and the poor dog is outside constantly, and I just feel so much for that dog. I just want to take him, unleash him, and bring him into my house where he can just stay inside. And I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Families are different. Like you said, back in the day, our families let the dog stay outside. There was dog houses, right? So, what are some of the key factors that courts now are considering, Michelle, when determining pet custody?
Yeah, in most states, pets are still an item of property. And so the first factor that a court's going to look at in a divorce is true ownership. Who bought the pet? Who bought the dog? Was it a gift? Was it a Christmas present? Was it a present to the child? And so ownership is going to be the very first factor, and in some situations the most important factor. But if it is truly a joint owned pet, or something that was a family bought, family purchase, then from there the judge is going to have some discretion as to how the pet can be awarded to whom, which spouse can be awarded the pet. There the judge can look at discretionary factors such as living conditions, who has the best backyard, who has the doggy pet spa, or the little the little waterfall watering machine, who has
Sure.
the best environment, living conditions for the pet, who's been the one to traditionally care for the pet. If the pet's bonded with one of the parties or maybe the child, who, where is the child going to be? Where are the parties going to be? Who travels? Who's going to be able to better care for the pet? Those types of equitable discretionary factors are going to be things that the judge can look at.
So, can you explain what a puppy prenup might be like? How it may work, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. Premarital agreements are things that don't just deal with money. Premarital agreements can deal with a lot of different factors that are important to the people getting married. And so if these people that are getting married know that their pets are something that are going to be important to them, they can predetermine. That's the most important thing about premarital agreements, is that you have the opportunity to predetermine, how things are going to look in the event that you have to break up, or as some celebrity called it, uncouple. And so you
Mm.
can already determine, like, we're going to share the dogs, or this dog was my dog coming into the marriage and it's going to be my dog exiting the marriage. So you can just predetermine what it looks like whenever you break up, instead of having some judge do something strange, like the judge in the story that's in the media right now, the One Tree Hill star that ended up with this $10,000 fine hanging over their head because of this split custody situation. And if you don't abide by it, you're going to have a $10,000 fine. That'd be crazy. So you can
Yeah,
always predetermine things with a prenup.
sure. So, can you differentiate, Michelle, between the pets and other marital assets, and how do the courts do that?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, pets are still kind of like property, but even judges have pets. They understand that they're not that Fido is not a piece of furniture.
Hmm.
So a piece of furniture doesn't have that sentimental value. It also is not a felony to mistreat your couch. So where it is a felony to mistreat Fido, so
Right.
a judge is going to make sure that the pet is cared for. So they really are a different classification of a property item that the judge does have an obligation, a legal obligation to make sure is cared for, where there really is no legal obligation to make sure that the furniture is cared for or even that the house, the yard is mowed, so there's a different type of obligation that the judge has to make sure that that quote unquote property item, Fido, is taken care of.
One of the best episodes, Michelle, I've ever seen of Judge Judy was the episode where there was a custody involvement between two owners who thought they owned the dog. And Judge Judy just said, put the dog down on the floor. Dog went to the floor, ran straight over to the gentleman, and it was, he loved the
Yeah,
dog. And so she
right.
gave him custody of the dog.
Yeah. And that's a perfect example of that, of what I said about who is the dog bonded to, right? That's
Yeah.
one of those equitable factors that a judge can use in deciding who gets the dog.
How might pet custody disputes impact other aspects of the divorce negotiations?
Well, I mean, certainly it is an item of negotiation, and in any negotiation, whether it's over pets or money or whatever in a divorce, you have to give up something for what you get, and it's all about, looking at it through a lens of what's going to happen if you have to go to the courthouse and have the judge decide things. So
Hmm.
you've got to know, like, is this a judge that's a pet lover, that is maybe a member of the ASPCA or whatever, or is this kind of an old school Texas good old boy ranch judge who's more accustomed to having pets outside that run cattle, So
Yeah.
those are, you've got to know your judge whenever you're doing those negotiations, to know what you're looking at. But one way that, as lawyers, we do use to settle pet cases is to kind of work out a schedule where you can, share the pet and have, like a week on, week off, or some
Hmm.
sort of shared schedule. I've had cases where I have clients who travel a lot, and so when the client's out of town, the other party might get the pet and take care of the pet while they're out of town. Some version of sharing. We used to do that as kindergartners. We'd learn to share. And
Sure.
my job as a divorce lawyer often is kind of like a kindergarten teacher teaching people to share again.
Michelle, how can pets be included in estate planning or even trusts?
It's the same kind of thing. I mean, pets often are going to outlive, especially the older you get and the younger the pet is. If you're,
Hmm.
if you're, looking at your elderly ages and you get a puppy, your pet may very well outlive you. And so there are often times where people put provisions in their will where money is set aside and maybe even put in trust with provisions for how their pet is going to get taken care of, who is going to take care of their pet. Those are provisions that can be handled. And there are some fluffy little kitties that have lots of provisions of all the fancy cat food that gets provided for them, and it's not uncommon. It's a very common thing.
I bet it is. How might the concept of best interest of the pet be applied in those custody decisions?
Yeah, I mean, certainly that is one of those equitable factors that comes into the discretion of the judge in awarding the pet, even though the pet is property. Like I said, the
Hmm.
ownership really is the first question. And if there's a clear delineation of that ownership, if it was given as a Christmas gift or a birthday gift, I mean, that is going to be a clear thing that may take it out of the discretion of the judge to award it to anybody else. But if it's a family, acquisition, the whole family went down and rescued the pet from the kill shelter, then then the judge is going to have that discretion to kind of consider those best interest factors. Like I said, the best backyard wins, the best water fountain, watering system wins, who orders the fanciest food, who takes them to the highest priced vet. All those are best interest type factors, and so those can come into play whenever the judge has all the discretion.
And finally, Michelle, what role do you think emotions versus practical considerations play in pet custody disputes?
I think judges are humans too, and judges have pets. And I think judges understand that pets are sentimental as much as an item of property. I mean, judges are going to treat pets in a very different category than furniture. Fido is not furniture. And so I definitely think that all the judges I know are going to respect the fact that Fido is not furniture, and understand that this is an entirely different category. They also are going to understand that it's not a child either, and we're not going to put pets in the same category as the children. So there's still some different delineations, but the judges that I practice in front of all understand that pets have a very important place in the family unit and make sure that they are taken care of.
Michelle O'Neill, family law attorney and host of the Divorce to Dynamite podcast. Thank you for your insight into dog custody. We sure appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.